Good evening, class. This time, our lecture will continue with the topic on the module 5 on the topic about global trends and emerging models in agribusiness. As we all have started to discuss in this module 5, this is one of the longest and also uh, in really allow us to deepen our understanding on the advanced dynamics and situations of the agribusiness, both in the local and also in the global scene. No? So, global trends and emerging models in agribusiness comes in three lessons. First one is contextualizing the global agribusiness, where we discuss about the the very important drivers of the global agribusiness. That is the fourth industrial revolution, and then also very important drivers in the global agribusiness, which is climate change. Okay, so these are very important drivers, and much more in the global agribusiness. Actually, there are three very important drivers: climate change, population growth, and also the fourth industrial revolution. The third one, the fourth industrial revolution, actually involves technology or technological development that is so fast and disrupting. That's why there is a need for the agricultural sector or for the agribusiness system to catch up and shape up in order to be at par with the technological development, and also somehow be able to catch up with the dynamics of the market, and also in the light of these pressures from climate anomalies around us. So we have here a module which is lesson on module 5, which is 5.2. We the title of this lesson is emerging business models and modalities at an enterprise level. That means to say, in module 5 there are two level or modalities that we need to see at enterprise level and at an industry level. What are the things that are going on for like an agribusiness in the global in the light of globalization? What are the changes at the enterprise level and also at the industry level? Okay, so that we will have a good perspectives in terms of how we see and understand agribusiness in its most advanced, or in its most trending dynamics. Okay, for emerging business models and modalities at the enterprise level, we will start with like a short of background. One very important drivers at the enterprise level we see around our community and even our locality is the expanding world population and urbanization. And of course, with that alone, we can see already market also becoming more and more sophisticated, and there is a proliferation of supermarkets around us, and we call that phenomenon as supermarketization. So supermarketization of agribusiness retail trade is the center of food distribution format that will meet the growing demand of people in the urban areas. Okay, so it has been already articulated in the market-centered agribusiness of Schultz and Edwards in 2003 that this is going to happen, and it's in fact happening now. It's market-centered and global in the agribusiness. So this is now the situation at the in agribusiness, both at the local and global. There is proliferation of supermarkets or supermarketization, and with that, it will reconfigure, or may it be you may call it reformat, the way we do retail trading. Okay, so considering this huge unavoidable transformation in the market, it triggered a natural spin-off of realignment and rethinking among all players across the global agribusiness value chain. The focus is how best can we serve the demands of the customers, and how best can we also be part of the global dynamics in agribusiness in order that we remain as a major player in agribusiness, and also remain to be of service, of relevance to the rural development initiatives of our government. Now, the first in the as we have as we have discussed before this lesson, first in the more of, say for example, very common and has been already existing in the industry, or been in our surroundings with the globalization of agribusiness, is the proliferation of, like, uh, CBDs, the central business districts in major cities. And then the most recent initiatives is the that agribusiness, they call it agri-industry business corridors. Okay, development of agri-industry business corridors, or for short, they call it ABC. Okay, ABCs. So if you have CBDs in central business district for retail trading, we also have at the supply base, supply side, we also have agri-industry business corridors. Now, what are these agribusiness business corridors? No, they have also, there is also what we call as supermarketization, reshaping in the light of supermarketization, reshaping the retail industry trade, or retail trade business in the Philippines. Now, we have to be reminded again that with increasing population, there is 60% of of this population in the year 2050, for example. 60% of that will be living in the urban areas. So that's a huge mouth to feed in cities. Now, in furthermore, as we see globalization influencing the market, the agribusiness market, we also see that globalization, in fact, is the center. Okay, globalization is the center of all major drivers of, say, for example, uh, these emerging models and modalities. No, you have globalization, and you have climate change, and of course, it goes with it increasing urbanization. Okay, when you say increasing urbanization, this is actually a population growth. Okay, of course, with increasing population and you have climate change, energy prices will follow, and all the other, say, for example, drivers of the uh, global agribusiness will come into play. And in fact, the strategy or the objective is, how are we going to make a transformative strategy for food, consumption and production and markets. That's always the direction in the light of all these different factors. No? So, in this regard, therefore, there is a huge refocusing of agribusiness to deal with globalization. And of course, from here, as mentioned, there is going to be systemic nature of value chains, that each firm or entrepreneur has to position in order to contribute the greatest value adding at the enterprise level, or even at the industry level. Okay. Also, what is going on in the market is, there is also a need to remain relevant and competitive in the market. There is a need to comply with basic quality standard that are already expected to be established, or in fact, it is already almost like a prerequisite of being able to go global. You need to comply to international quality audit, like for example, GAP certification, GMP certified, halal certified, it's HACCP certified, and so on and so forth, and such and so. Okay, now this, as we have said, this globalization is actually also one of the reasons why there are CBDs in various areas of our region. It proliferated the establishment of CBDs. Like for example, in Metro Manila, you can just see a booming CBDs in Metro Manila. You have so many CBDs in Metro Manila, Makati, Ortigas, Pasay, you have EDSA Pioneer, and outside the NCR, for example, you have Muntinlupa and in Madrigal Business Park. And in provincial areas also, CBDs are really sprawling in Cebu, in Baguio, in Zamboanga, in Davao. So there are so many CBDs already growing. It's all over the country already in response to globalization. Because if we are not going to do that, other international players will come in. They will put up the same thing for us. That's why before they come, we have to put in so that the market is going to be occupied by our players, local players. And then another thing, we have also CBDs growing or regional CBDs growing faster than national average. In Caraga, for example, these are signs that CBDs are impacting national and regional economies. Some regions and populations are expanding faster because of the presence of CBDs, because there is consumer spending, and the consumer spending will drive the economy becoming more dynamic. And of course, with CBDs, it's going to also increase the purchasing power of people because it will generate employment. Okay, so that's how CBDs becoming very influential. Now, going back to the establishment of agri-industrial business corridors, or we call it ABCs. In the retail market, okay, this ABCs is another format of industry at an industry at an enterprise level, where it talks about concentration and refocusing of business activities at an enterprise level, looking at agriculture or agribusiness. While CBDs can be on the process, on the not necessarily agriculture, not everything agriculture, but focusing on how retail business is being conducted in major cities in order to meet the demands of expanding urban population. So you have here what we have here our discussion on agri-industrial business corridors or ABCs. This is a strategic declaration and also direction for what our Department of Agriculture is seeing. What are ABCs? No? The conceptual and theoretical underpinnings of this modality is that as the market and players from across geographic location become increasingly linked together, the competitive landscape also change from integration to coordination. Okay, remember in fourth industrial revolution, or even in the third industrial revolution, the third is industrial revolution is all about the use of computer, how it can automate process, how it can automate your operation, how you can process data in a way that you can convert that into information for decision support. That is third industrial revolution. Now, in the fourth industrial revolution, it's all about connectivity. How these different computers and automated processes can be linked together in order to somehow expand and change the landscape of competition, not only in terms of like competition between firms, but more so competition between value or supply chains. Okay, so it's now a firm-to-firm competition with respect to ABCs, because the world is becoming very, very much connected. Connectivity is global. We need also to compete globally, so that in order to be effective as a global player, we need to link together and really create a critical mass of business establishment and supply the market, not only local but also in the global market. So that's the very very characteristic of the fourth industrial revolution, transformative landscape of competition. Okay, so there is more integration. We have been seeing people are really towing and froing abroad. So in other words, it's easy now to communicate at real-time business establishment in other countries. No? And then these modalities also of competition no longer, okay, are between firms, but actually between clusters or group of firms linked or coordinated together in a web known as supply or value chain. Okay, so this is the no, this is the the final product. Why do we have to think from a value chain perspective, from a supply chain perspective? We do this because we want to link together, because the competitive landscape in the global market is not anymore between firms, between individual firms, but between supply or value chain. Okay. Now, in this platform also, partnership have become increasingly crucial for strength complementation and weakness offsetting. Okay. In other words, you can just win ASEAN. You have already what is happening outside or in our region, like the ASEAN. We already have the ASEAN one ASEAN. We even sang the ASEAN theme song. We already have. In other words, we are becoming more and more interconnected as ASEAN. So what is the implication? Market is expanding. Okay, if you think about only like for example, processing bukayo for Ormoc market or for Baybay market, now bukayo this time is no longer looking at that level of competition. Bukayo actually, what we have now, very simple product, but once you package that and allow that to be in the supermarket, it will now challenge the competitive, it will now bear the competitive or confronted with a competitive challenge of the same bukayo in Indonesia, in Thailand, and other countries. In other words, your market is expanding. So if you think that you only have a very limited volume to start with, we need to cluster together. That's why these agri industries business corridors very important. Okay. Now, in agri-industrial business corridors, clustering involves coordination, cooperation, and even collaboration among related operations at pre-production, production, and post-production. In other words, strengthening core competence between firms so that as you link together, you supply a common market. Okay, you supply a common market, set the standard at this particular network. This type of arrangement will not only improve the competitiveness of players through specialization and of function, but will also distribute risk around the chain and thus making business systems more resilient. Isn't that great? Because you cannot integrate as an individual, because not only that it will be costly, you cannot also, there is no risk offsetting or there is no weakness offsetting, and also you cannot take advantage of the strength of other partners. So you are left on your own. So it's very risky and expensive. But once you are linked together, the weakness of one is the strength of the other. You can offset your weakness, and the risk of one will now be offsetted by the strength of another firm. In that case, you become more resilient and ready to fight competition in the global market. Okay, so you have here farmers, which is actually a group of farmers linked to a food processor, and then you have farmers network and so on. And then you have the farmers can be like, for example, commodity focus for several hectares like this one. These are combination of farmers from various, like for example, locations, and then they cultivate one particular crop for a single market. In other words, they are coordinated, not like before where in a, for example, 30-hectare area or maybe 100-hectare area, some are planting vegetables, some are planting rice, some are planting so on and so forth. Very economically suboptimal. But this time, you combine your acts together, produce in volume, produce good quality, you serve the market also at high value price. Okay? So that is the beauty of agri-industrial business corridors. Okay? So you strengthen, you also improve the ability of the value or the supply chain to serve markets that are of high value. Okay. So that is agribusiness business corridors. Our farmers will be integrated and will have all the advantages if this implementation becomes successful. But there are two challenges, major challenges in creating these agribusiness corridors. No, one is, or in other words, to really put this in place, there are two major challenges within the context of Philippine agriculture. One is our farmers remain individualistic, unorganized, and thus are not linked directly to markets. That's true. No? Kanya-kanya gyapon ta, wa ta nag-organize. There must be a common agenda by which we link together, pull our resources together, and market as one entity. Okay? As one entity, because the market will 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 tell us. I remember when we have this forum, we want to link a group, several farmers association. We want them to plant something, and then we group them together. It was an initial attempt. We have done this in Mindanao. We group them together and negotiate with a possible supermarket, say for example, buyer, possible market in the urban areas, like for example in Davao. So one particular, say for example, buyer is the Gaisano group of companies, okay, the Gaisano chain of stores. So we talked to John Gaisano in Davao, and you know what was his, and you know what did he tell us? What did he tell the farmers? He said, yes, I'm thankful that you are coming to me, and I want to buy your I want to buy your vegetable, or I want to buy what you have. What do you have? Okay, you have vegetable, you have root crops, you have some bits and pieces. I will buy them all, but on one condition. Oh, you see, on one condition. I'm not going to talk to everybody. I'm going to talk only to one person. That's the requirement. So what was the message about? The message was very clear. You have to cluster, you have to aggregate, and I want only to talk to one person who can represent everybody. So that was a very clear message. And from that encounter, we learned, and we have to reconfigure our farmers. And we did the same thing in Ormoc, and quite humbly, we were successful actually in doing that with our, and it's even still existing this time, even with our absence already physically in the area of where we started this particular strategy. Sila na ngadto sa market because they have established linkage already after we have really tried this particular model with them. And I am convinced that ABCs is really workable. It's gonna work in our situation. It's just a matter of really trying to identify a location specific strategy, and very importantly, there is a need to make a rapid assessment of the market and see what are the growth areas, and what are the possible products, what are the quality requirements, and have the farmers and the traders talk each other in order that, and be sure that we in the research or extension for example, in the government, or those who are facilitators, we make sure that the farmers will have all the assistance in being able to comply to the requirements of the market. Okay, so we have a good documentation how we did that particular success story also. No, so before, just quickly, before, that group of farmers did not even think of planting, for example, lettuce. Did not even think of planting bell peppers. Can you imagine bell peppers? They were accustomed to planting this kanang espada ba nga gagmay nga atsal kanang inanakadag ko, maybe was that the sweet pepper, something like that. Then selling it locally for like maybe 80, dako na kayo ng 80 pesos per kilo, maybe 50 or even 40 pesos per kilo katong espada nga pepper. So we introduced bell pepper as big as this, no? As big as this. And it's bought in the market, it's sold in the market in Cebu. How much? The supermarket is selling it at 480 per kilo. We sell it to them at 220 per kilo. Okay? And that's a big shot already for the farmers. Why? We help them in their finances, in financial management, and found out that for every kilo that is going to land in Cebu, that is production cost plus marketing cost, they will only spend about 48 pesos per kilo. Per kilo of bell pepper until it reaches the market, 48 lang. So, tagaan sila 220 pesos per kilo. It's a big deal, big shot. And then, a very inspiring result, according to them, sir, permira pag yun na mong kagunit o checking o 1 million halin sa among vegetable. Can you imagine that? Very inspiring. And until now, magunaw man ang mundo, di na nila buhian ang bell pepper. Grabe kaayo. They learn it the hard way. They learn it by doing it themselves. Wala namin dito, they still continue to plant because they are convinced that there is something good that is happening in this kind of arrangement. Clustering and marketing it themselves. Among themselves, they even hire, they pay the marketing coordinator. So, na marketing coordinator nila. O, nagbalik ka. Ilan tong bayran yun? No? Ilan tong bayran? That's their strategy because wala naman mi dito. Okay? So, it's very, very important in order to overcome this individualistic or unorganized tendency of the farmers. Another challenge is farmlands are small and fragmented. Saving link, according to the Department of Agriculture, is to organize them into cooperatives. Thereafter, consolidate clusters of fragmented farms. That's exactly what it was done. How we did it also, it's not really just that huge part because in the technical side also, of course, we organized them, clustered them, and then what we did was a little bit. There was a little tweaking in the methodology that we use because they were so, you know what? They were so reserved and inhibited to adapt. They said during our meeting, "What? We will plant bell pepper, and how much would that cost?" We thought we throw this challenge to them. One seed, not just a seed of the bell pepper. One seed is 11 pesos. No way! Di mo 11 pesos. 11 pesos. Huh? One seed, no? One seed. That means ang pila ka grams, maybe 100 grams of seed that cost thousands of pesos. Like one seed, 11 pesos na good, no? And then, in order to convince them, because they have not seen the big picture yet, okay, we told them, okay, that's very expensive. Yes, that's why we are talking to you. So this is the trick, or this is our commitment. You plant, and then we like for example, we finance the buying of the seeds. You just devote your area and your labor, but we buy the seeds for you. But this is the trick. If you fail, like if you fail, don't forget about paying us. But if you succeed, pay us. It's a good bargain. It's a good deal. He said, okay, we will try. Then the next time around, who will plant? If that is the arrangement, almost 80% of 60 or 70% of them, there were 20 of them initially. Almost maybe 60 or 70% of them raised their hands that they're willing to plant. After 1 or 2 cycles of planting, you will be surprised. You will be surprised. When a 250 square meter plot with cover, with protective cover, 250 square meters will earn as much as 300 to 350,000 sales every cycle. Can you imagine? How much is one protective structure? That's only 52,000. Usara ka cropping, wipe out na ang cost sa protective structure. Plus, of course, they only spend. I mean, their margin of the value is really so much. Okay, the margin of the value addition. Now, After 2 or 3 plantings, we said, now guys, we told the farmers, guys, we uh, uh, we almost like we are now at the stage of facing a wall. What is that, sir? What is that? Facing the wall of a challenge that we can no longer continue to plant bell pepper. What? Why? Because we have found out that there is very high incidence of bacterial wilt in this area. If you plant, for example, 100 hills or maybe 200 hills, may na lang na ay 100 mabuhi ana or mo very productive. And in spite of that, they were earning a lot. Bisa gamay rin ng nabuhi, no? Because of bacterial wilt. Even bearing maybe 1 or 2 kilos of bell peppers already will just surprisingly wilt because of bacterial attack. So what's going to happen, sir? If you agree, we will introduce a sexually propagated bell pepper. What is that? Grafted bell pepper. Grafted bell pepper. So we graft the bell pepper. For example, of course, they are all solanaceous or solanaceous but bell pepper. Basta we graft the native chili or bell pepper or pepper, graft that with bell pepper, katong hybrid, graft that and plant that there in Kabintan. And we train them in grafting. We train them. And then we count the cost. It will arrive to about 15 pesos per grafted seedling. And to count everything, including other associated costs, it's the one grafted seedling will cost about 21 or 25 pesos each grafted seedling. Surprisingly, they were not intimidated by the cost of the seedling. They are still willing to plant 25 pesos per seedling. Where on earth are you going to really think about they're willing and they're still continue nangayo pa og grafted seedling. Because why? They knew there is a market. They knew that they're going to earn something and they knew that they can do it. Of course, with our assistance. But this time, very minimal assistance. Okay? So, very important that as we link together, there should be a market. Ni adto, link sila ko no as association. Wala magyapoy market, no? The role of the market is very important, especially that the market is expanding this time. You're not only thinking sa una naanad naman sila Ormoc, Tacloban, Baybay. We crossed to Cebu. The first time we brought them to Cebu and talked to the purchasing manager of Gaisano chain of stores and also Robinsons. Wow, nalula sila. the demand from those people. And we brought also those people from Cebu and see the farm. See the farm and how they are doing. That alone convince them and integrate into our practice na the buyers in Cebu will always sila na mangita pod kay balo sila nga ang quality because they knew that there is offsetting of risk in that case. Yeah. Why? Because the vegetable that is brought to Cebu is FOB shipping point. I mean FOB Cebu port. Di na sila mo gasto o shipping. Ya ang kuan pod ang mga farmer pod knowing that even if they bring the product to Cebu, upon reaching Cebu, ang pag-abot gid sa pier, Gaisano na madala na dito sa ilang shop. They will spend about 48 pesos per kilo. 48 pesos. Dako na gud na. But boy, considering it's high value crop, wala ra tong 48 pesos. It's dwarfed by the 220, sometimes 280. Because you can see in the supermarket, 480 ang ilang baligya, no? Per kilo. So we're giving them, the farmers now can say, oh, how much are you buying, guys? Okay, maybe we can deliver next time. They knew already that we are getting a good price from in another concessionaire for Robinsons. So, in other words, there is business relationship growing and mutually reinforcing. No longer, wala na mahitabo tong tagaon ang farmer. Karon, connected naman by cell phone, by other means, email, wala na. It's a really a successful intervention. Therefore, it is essential that these cooperativized producer groups will be assisted to partner with big business venture. And that's exactly what happened, no, in that intervention. Then a renewed trust called Bayanihan sa Agrikultura or Bayanagri. This is the model of Department of Agriculture. These producer groups will be consolidated, clustered into farms, fishing grounds under new program approach. So that is the agri-industrial business corridors. No? So in pursuance towards attaining food security, the Philippine agriculture establishment of ABCs will tap and unleash the potential of rural communities to produce and contribute to national development. So this is the tall order call now that the policy of the Philippines under the new normal, particularly in empowering farmers and fishers to be competitive. No, but it is not a work overnight. It's not a work overnight. It's a process that is really needing discourse and also risk taking. And at the end of the day, if we are focused with our objectives and goals, then things is going to turn out favorably on their side. Now, this direction of there are already ABCs established in the Philippines. Actually, we have ABCs in the New Clark Green City, and ABCs also in the with under the BCDA of Clark, and there are also ABCs in Subic to serve markets in Manila and other big cities in Luzon. No? So, integration of farms. In Europe, actually, it's like that. Farms are integrated. When we tried asking one farmer, a plantation farmer, we asked them, "You own this? You own this big tracts of land?" So he said, "No, I rent them. No? I'm just the manager. But there are subdivisions around here. Means subdivision into plots, but it is an integrated cultivation of one particular crop or for dairy production. No? So it's actually can be done because it's done there. It can be done in the Philippines. No? So that's the ABC also of that is like a part of 5.2. Now the next time the in this particular module 5.2, okay, we kind of you are assigned actually. No, you are assigned as part of your learning task. Be sure to accomplish this. Now you have here, you search the web and research on full documentation of what CBD is all about. The conceptual difference between CBD and ABCs, I've discussed that a while ago. And then you also have, write this in a 4-page lang, na polo ka na, maybe in not more than 2,000 words. Just short, 4-page summary. What's the difference between CBD, and try to understand what is CBD, what are CBDs and what are ABCs. These two business clustering concepts. That's your learning task for module 5.2. Okay, module 5.2. Now, let's go to another. I'll introduce you rather to another module or another lesson under module 5. Okay, another lesson under module 5. So this is module 5.3. Okay. Now in module 5.3, this is I divided module 5.3 into 2 parts. Then one part I will lecture asynchronously, and then the second part I'm going to lecture synchronously. That means to say I'll be back and lecture to you interactively in module 5, lesson 5.3, part 2. I will be back and lecture to you interactively. But right now, we will do a lecture in lesson 5.3 under module 5 asynchronously. Okay, I'll finish almost like halfway, and that's all for the lecture today. So what is this module 5.3 or lesson 5.3? Lesson 5.3 is about future trends and models at the industry level. In module 5.2, we talk about future trends and models at the enterprise level. So it's far becoming macro already, industry level. We're now talking of industry, not just enterprise. Okay? Kantong CBDs, ABCs, those are enterprise level. How you are going to make modifications at the enterprise level. Now we have supply chain clustering, etc. No? And then every individual firms grouping together and serve a common market so that there is offsetting and also minimizing risk, and also uh, uh, becoming more optimal in being able to serve markets of far distant, say for example, locations. So lesson 5.3 is future trends and models at the industry level. No? The industry level. So with that note, what is an industry level, say for example, trends and models? Now, very importantly, in this, why do we have to do an industry-wide, for example, restructuring? Because you know pretty well that with the three drivers of change in the future, okay, agribusiness or food and agribusiness in 2050, futuristic scenario with a population of almost 10 billion people, and 60% of that are are living in the urban areas. Boy, you can imagine how dense, or how how difficult food distribution would be. So that we would like to see an industry-wide transformation because of a highly complex and highly integrated and interconnected networks of agribusiness that's going to happen during that time. So it will impact on the industry and much more. There is growing challenge in terms of how to feed the growing food demand in the urban areas. In other words, the challenge during that time will be MUFN, or meeting urban food needs, during that time. So with that, we really need to see an industry-wide look at agribusiness actually. With the huge challenge confronting the future of global food and agribusiness, and also plus dwindling resources, it is imperative therefore to reframe existing and traditional business and industry formats and master an effective and integrated solution to this common problem. Okay, reformat industry and master an effective and integrated solution. You see, these things cannot happen without Industry 4.0. Why? Because this assumes that there is super connectivity of all firms around the globe. Okay, there is super connectivity that you can transact business and flawless transaction anywhere in the globe. Okay, so that is 4.0. That is what 4.0 is all about. It is all about connectivity. In, as I said, in industry 3.0, it's all about computer technology and process automation and decision support system for a certain process. But in agriculture 4.0 or industry 4.0, it's all about connectivity. With connectivity, you also expand your reach of the market, you expand your customers, you will also be facing diversity of customers and diversity of requirements between borders of national concern. Okay, so in this particular lesson, we start with one particular. I will only be discussing, no, two models, industry level models in the global agribusiness at an industry level. One is clustering of supply chain, and the other one is food distribution supply system, or food systems distribution, food systems food supply distribution system. There are two models really. So I will discuss first clustering of supply chains. What is this? What is this industry-wide reconfiguration in the future of agribusiness? And it's even happening now. Okay, there is really, if we implement ABC, that's part of this particular modality. Only that ABC is with respect to a particular geographic location. But ABC, if you uh, zoom out a little further, you will actually see clustering of supply chains. Okay, you will see actually clustering of supply chains under a very diverse and dynamic global market. Okay, the entire discussion of this clustering of supply chains, it introduces us to systemic dynamic modeling in addressing complex situation steps that will possibly distribute food to urban areas. Okay, so the third IR, it is particularly industrial revolution by computerization. But in the fourth IR, you have no connectivity, and that is very important requisites or prerequisite for clustering of supply chains. The market is really borderless, so we need to be connected. No? There is, then everything will gravitate to a new global order of industries. We now call industry clusters. Kanina, cluster of firms. Okay, agri-industrial clustering or agri-industrial business clustering. Karon, industry cluster na ni, industry to industry clustering. Okay? So you have this change in platform, industry clustering. Why industry clusters? Why? Okay? Why do we need industry clusters? If we look at the what the economic geography of the globe, or in the world, we see always the the global value chain is dominated by clusters. This is a geographic concentration of linked business that enjoy unusual competitive success in their field. Can you imagine this particular visions and this particular paradigm has already been articulated by Michael Porter in 1998, and it's in fact is happening now. Actually, there is a global clustering of industries. Okay, even in footwear industries, one particular area will specialize on production of rubber. One particular area will specify will focus on making of, say, manufacturing of shawl, sole. I mean sole, and then one is say, for example, specializing on shoelace weaving, shoelace lang, and then going back to a particular location for assembling. The same with car manufacturing. Okay, the radiator is coming from the Philippines, the engine block is coming from Thailand, and some of the tire is from China or from Vietnam, and assembled together in Japan and delivered to Philippine market and all other markets around Asia. That's how clustering will work. It's industry in a global scale. Currently, globalization of economy and the ease of transportation and communication have led to many companies, or more of its operation location with situating locations on areas with low wages, taxes, and utility costs. That is one very important purpose why there is clustering of industries. For example, uh, tire manufacturing. So the production of rubber will be done in, for example, in the Philippines because barato dito. And then the processing of rubber, there is Malaysia because barato dito, or there is Thailand. And then what else? The production of all other parts in that particular maybe the metal that is within the tire itself, the metal, the wires inside that will be coming from a certain country like Indonesia because maybe Indonesia is a member of cartel of those manufacturing or having a huge deposit of tin and steel, something like that. And then assembling in Malaysia, sold to all other countries, including the Philippines, for its distribution. The reason, in order to cut down on cost. Then is it difficult to do that? It's easy because these factories are interconnected in real time. Real time. That's why when I bought, for example, just side note, when I bought a car tire, it's made in the US. No? It's made in the US. But how come it's able to compete with made in Thailand or maybe made in Thailand, made in India? It can compete. There's no rubber tree in the US. There's no rubber tree there. Expectedly, the tires coming from US would be expensive, but they're able to compete with Asian competitors. Why? Because of this global industry clustering. The technology and maybe the assembling might be coming from the US, but the production is somewhere coming from other countries and assembled together, probably in Indonesia, and distribute to Asian market. So it's still able to compete because they will locate a certain parts of the operation in a country where there is cheap tax, there is cheap labor. I'm not saying that they are not going to pay for the labor cost. It's just that the labor equivalent daily wage of that particular skill when paid in the US more expensive, okay, than we pay it here in the Philippines. For example, if they pay $25 an hour, huh? $25 an hour. There is a Pilipinas that's so much. How much is pilate hatag na to per hour? We only pay about 2-3 cents an hour because how much are we paying for our labor? Maybe 500. Okay, 500 is just about how many? Just about $5 or maybe $10. Whereas there, that is $10 per hour or per day. There, $25 an hour is so expensive. So better have it assembled in the Philippines. It's simple logic, economic argument. So that's why there is a need to, uh, do this clustering, industry clustering. Because if you're not going to do that, if you, yeah, like for example, manufacture it yourself from production up to processing, but you cannot compete in the global market. Simply cannot. Even if the Philippines with cheap labor, they cannot also compete because why? We don't have the technology also for certain parts or certain parts of the whole process or the whole chain. So we need to combine together and link together with other countries. So labor-intensive activities must be done in areas where there is cheap labor. Okay, and then well-known industrial clusters earn certain reputation in the world, such as textile, clothing cluster, and also electronic cluster, and car manufacturing, and so on. Even in shoe making or shoe uh, manufacturing, mga sapatos, no? Now, what are the I would say criteria that there is a need or the logic why do we have to have clustering of industries? One is proximity to the market, nearness to the market. Another is offsetting of weaknesses or minimizing risk by capitalizing on core competence of people. Okay? For example, tire manufacturing, na may, I don't know, kamao ba ng tanong mong rubber ng mga Amerikano? No. Di ana sa Asia because we have the manpower and the technology and very cheap. So di ana sila link up na sila diri sa Asia. Thailand, Philippines, Not even Malaysia, because Malaysia is already becoming more expensive in terms of labor cost, because Malaysia is really have just graduated from developing to developed economy. Just recently, less than 5 years ago, Malaysia, or maybe a little over 5 years ago, Malaysia has graduated to becoming a developed economy. How much how much per capita income Malaysia have? Malaysia has a per capita income per person income of about 22,000 US dollars. How much is the Philippines? Igo lang ta nagtilap-tilap sa 4,000 US dollars. How much is Singapore? Singapore is about, well, mga 50,000 US dollars. Pareho rin as ng Japan and Thailand is like 7,000 US dollars. And Vietnam, uwahin ng Vietnam na to, but patas-patas na tayo per capita income. Our per capita income as of 2020 or 2019 is about 4,200 US dollars. Layo pa kaita maski sa Malaysia. Okay? So, Brunei, di na lang, kay dako ng Brunei. Brunei is also a developed economy because of its huge oil reserve. No? So, proximity and core competence. Another is relationships or connectivity. Okay? Very logistics, dali ra kaayong logistics ba? Okay? Dili na hingog relationship in terms of connectivity. Okay? Okay. Now, you have proximity. Okay? I'm going to present to you a framework where these countries are connected with each other in the cluster because of proximity to market and proximity with each other. Okay? So, buyers and sellers, dali ra kaayong makuan, minimizing marketing cost and also serve the market where it is best, it will provide us greater value addition. Okay? So, countries like Germany, Italy, India, USA, and then other countries like China, they combine together and create a link of industries. Like for example, in this map, this is a selected footwear clusters. Okay, footwear clusters. You have here Italy and Portugal, then linked together with Romania. Okay, kani sila usa na ka cluster. Okay, maybe you have here production and short production runs in medium price range na sa Portugal. There is sa Italy, they have design and marketing and production of premium shoes, and then export worldwide. And then you have Romania, production subsidiaries of Italian companies focus on lower medium price range. So ang baratuhon dire ka sa Romania. Kanya ang medium price niya ka sa Portugal, and then ang mga maing design niya nagikan sa Italy. They combine together in one cluster. China and Vietnam and even Indonesia, they also combine as one cluster. These footwear clusters, no? Ilang company nagkuha na, nag-exchange na. Even the Philippines already included. You can see, for example, hiking shoes from Vietnam, also partnering with the Philippines and Malaysia. And then United States is partnering with Brazil. No? Brazil. You have Brazil. You have low to medium quality finish shoes. Inputs, leather tanning, shift towards higher quality products in response to Chinese price competition. Kaya malugi man ang Amerika sa competition sa Chinese. So nag-link sila sa Brazil para makakuha sila og semi-processed nga sapatos aris America, because the US design and marketing focus on sa US, offsetting risk and minimizing cost with each other. So these are examples nga worldwide and then coming together to serve a high value market and offsetting and minimizing each other's weakness and risk. No? So that is in terms of core competence, traditional idea that a single enterprise can meet all the market needs is crumbling as a paradigm. Yeah, you cannot manufacture everything, you cannot perform everything. Global competition and rapid technological change is going to confront you, and if you do not have access to this technology, you will find yourself being on the red in that particular industry, and soon enough you will be wiped out in the competition. Okay, so there there is really a need to help upgrading of industrial clusters and serve a common market. Okay, like for example, airline industry. Okay, airline industry, very typical example. Now, what do you have in the airline industry? Airline industry is not just simply what you have passengers and you fly and bring that to this destination. No, airline industry has a lot of related like processes and industries together, like restaurant and catering. Okay, kana lang daho na nakaayo nga business. What else? Aircraft maintenance. Okay, what else? You have like hotel booking and processing of passengers. Okay, asa man ani mo himuon. You have to look for partners across the globe who can do it for you at the most cheaper and competitive price and cost, and also very accessible to you. just like for example, just like for example, uh, United Airlines, their payroll system is being maintained in the Philippines. Payroll system in the Philippines, just the payroll accounting system maintained by IT specialists in the Philippines. Why? Because if they do that in the US, lugi sila. They will be paying like $35 an hour for an IT processing of their payroll system. But in the Philippines, one IT specialist can uh, process for them like 25 to 30,000 a month, or even if they pay, for example, 50,000 a month, that's only about $2,000 a month. Whereas in the US, they have to pay $35 a day, $35 an hour times 8. Ang imong 25, 35, or even 50,000, di ra na kamo to sa semana dito sa US. Dako kay gasto. Dahil to locate partner. Another, AirAsia, ang ilang catering, or even Lufthansa. Lufthansa, where they get their catering, the Philippines. Aircraft maintenance, they also house it in the Philippines because cheap ang labor. So they can fly their aircraft, okay na lang repair, at this Pilipinas, repair, and very cheap. If they do that in Germany, boy, the cost is skyrocketing. They cannot compete in the global market. That's why there is industry clustering, grouped together to really for proximity, core competence, say core competence, and also like strengthening, mutually strengthening one another. And another is you have you have also connectivity. Okay, connectivity. So that's one of the reasons why they have to do supply chain clustering. Now, in a number of SMEs are blocked outside the core link of the value chain because they are webbed together, no? Para pa rin disadvantage, no? Of supply chain clustering. Kung di ka ka-part sa supply chain clustering, you will not be, in other words, your entry is blocked along that line. Okay? Even if you are a restaurant owner, okay? Hindi man ka-part sa, dili ka-part restaurant owner or maybe a bakery owner who can also bake equally competitive and delicious whatever food for airline service. But if you are not part of the, part of the cluster of the for Philippine Airlines, you cannot enter into that industry. But the trick is these partners within the airline industry have also subsidiary partners who will supply them with bread actually. So you can be part, but indirectly also, provided you have something to show. No? You have something to show. Now, even in manufacturing operation, like if you happen to learn, like for example, uh, perla, kaning laundry soap, no? Kanang perla bar, perla. I don't know if you have seen that. I mean, kung naapa ba ka na sa market. I know in the past that The Perla, which is manufactured by Procter and Gamble in somewhere in Tondo, the Perla bar is actually not manufactured in their plant. It's actually sub-processed by another processor somewhere in Caloocan with a known name. But they can supply the Procter and Gamble with the proper specification. Okay, supply sila. Tatakan sa Procter and Gamble. Nga pangalan ragit sa Procter and Gamble. Pero lain ang nag-process. Paliton lang nila. O okay raman na sa okay raman na sa subcontractor kay importante mahalin ang ilang sabon. Tatakan nga to, Perla. Pap, Procter and Gamble. So, ang pangalan sa that's direct naman sila. Di man gid sila Procter and Gamble because they cannot also be Procter and Gamble cannot also assume their operation. It's too costly for P&G to buy them. So that's how business works. No? So you have here also you cannot enter, especially if there is a mismatch of capability at various partners. Kinalang capability na agi matching, like one weakness of the other is a strength of the other. The risk of one can be a strength of another. Something like that, no? So if there is mismatch, weakness nimo, weakness po niya, no way, hindi na natin partner, sa mo tagka-weak, tani, no? So something like that, no? So with that, there is what we call as, according to the principle of bucket effect, the weakness of the key links will lead to a difficulty in the cooperation kung dili nimo ayokon din na mismatch, no? Kinahanglan complementation gyud ta, no? Okay. The lack of public service infrastructure is also hindering clustering also. There should be enough public infrastructure like, well, internet, telephone, etc., electricity, energy cost, etc., several others, no? So that is what is important. The solution for really this particular difficulty in supply chain clustering is that there should be a changing paradigm in terms of thinking, like for example, borderless economy perspective. You are not going to say that, something like it's crossing another country, maybe malugi mi diri, kami diri ana kuan kanang naay mo gain. Well, that is no longer very the big issue now. Why? Because the internet is worldwide. It does not respect national boundaries. You can even sell, you can even buy, even coming from communist countries, because the delivery is something else, no? And then making the decision, you can cross borders. What is important is that there is fraudless transaction. Okay, there is mutual reinforcement and fraudless connectivity is assured. Okay, connectivity is assured. That's why these things cannot happen if 4IR is not even emerging in that location, in that country. Now, in our economy, there are already a number of industries that are linked together with the global value chain. Electronics is one. Okay, so that's one. No, that's why during the seminar that I attended, the 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 greatest contributor of manufactured export from our country, the greatest contributor of manufacturing export is electronics. No? Electronics ang greatest contributor sa export. Ang greatest one nga contributor sa import is also electronics. Why is that? Anong greatest contributor sa import? We import also a lot of electronics. So, ang suma total, we are actually an importing country in terms of electronics. But we are actually also exporting. Only nga, mas daghan ang atong i-import. Why? Because the whole process of finished product, electronic gadget, labor ay atong contribution. The technology, the material, di nagikan, labor, assembly ray ato. Pag-assemble, padala dito sa for example, Taiwan is partnering with mga electronics kuan din sa Pilipinas, like in Baguio. So, i-assemble ang motherboard sa Baguio, okay, employ a lot of people, and then bring the finished motherboard to Taiwan, idala gigamit sa ASUS or sa Acer or any other manufacturer. Gi-import po nagbalik sa Pilipinas or maybe in Singapore, gi-import po nagbalik ang finished computer. But ang contribution sa Pilipinas or ang atong gain ato is just being able to employ people, a very small part only of the whole value of the computer system. So that's one thing. That's why our government our government is, we will widen, we will move up our role in the entire value chain of this particular product. Maybe we export already semi-finished computer, or maybe finished computer, maybe parts of the computer, or diversify products. No? Maybe SSD can be done, can be manufactured here and export to Taiwan. So at least SSD na ilang paliton. Dili na ang metal or sa baba ilang igora ta nag-assemble diri. We really manufacture from the ground up, something like that, no? So that is something else. So another is the background concept of cluster is really put forward as enhancing the growth and the participation of SMEs in the economy, no? Now, there is also, again, in China, there is a difficulty. There is a sheer difficulty of really coming up with a good performing electronic gadgets because of like a power problem or something like that. But for complexity of low voltage electric equipment and the number of its supporting part is up to the hundreds of thousands of metal parts and alloys. That means to say, with available materials that they have, they can also increase the capacity of a particular, say, voltaic gadget. No? Now, if there are available raw materials, just like in China, for example, 70% of them can be purchased locally. So in that case, strategic advantage na kayo ang China, no? Kung naa sila locally produced materials. But we also import materials, labor ang ato pag-assemble ra, our value addition in the whole value chain system of that product is very small, no? Very small. So, as I said, the core idea of this clustering of supply chain is that geographical concentration or proximity. Okay, you also have network collaboration or offsetting of strength and weaknesses across partners, and then very importantly, you have also like the service-centric pattern, or that means to say na ay connectivity kada usa. Na ay connectivity, service-centric pattern. Advantage will not be determined chiefly by efficiency, but sources of inputs, no? But rather on the ability of firms to exploit resources available in the environment which they can operate. Okay, so facilities like the environment based on order, etc. No, in that location, so that there is offsetting of weakness and minimizing of risk mutually between like industries. You cluster together and serve a common market. No, in so doing, the advocate of supply chain clustering suggests that greater competitive advantage can be derived by examining immediate business environment outside the firm rather than focusing on what happens inside the firm. It's focusing on outside, what is happening outside, like global or in the regional ASEAN region, for example. Supporting service system makes CSC or clustering supply chain very productive and also very engaging, no? As it becomes more service-centric and threshold into K links. In a word of CSC, CSC is derived from enterprise, not limited to enterprise based on cluster, but not confined to cluster also in an organization. The division of labor, okay, between enterprise is highly developed in horizontal dimension. In other words, magkalapad ka, creating an industry. And then relatively complete supply chain structure in constructing a vertical dimension. Because when you say vertical dimension, you are looking at the entire industry. Like for example, car manufacturing, kung right, katong tire, radiator, engine block, the whole links of the different operations of the car manufacturing is actually one industry, one industry. So that means to say, you are actually in clustering of industries, you are actually creating a vertical dimension of the industry or vertical dimension of the structure. So you link everybody to a common structure, or to a common industry, serving a global market. The whole organization shows a network structure, which is the industry itself. Without collaboration based on network structure, an organization may become inefficient, and in the end, it will be a failure. No? So, clustering of supply chain is an industry-driven initiative across the globe in order to capitalize on core competence, minimize cost, and of course, risk, and of course, capitalize on proximity to market, and it will also be maximizing or capitalizing on, like for example, connectivity with each other. Without connectivity, forget about clustering of supply chains. Okay, global innovation centers such as Silicon Valley Semiconductors, if there are multiple innovation centers, they normally specialize in different market segments, which is true. No? The the PESA or Philippine Export Processing Zone, several PESA in the Philippines. These different enterprise within that export processing zone are actually specializing in different market segments. Some like himulani for a different market, tapo dito, something like that. Like ubandiri, one part only, then assembled, padala dito sa other countries. And then once it is finished, it will be distributed throughout the partner countries. Okay? So you have particular product segments or other cluster focus on particular product segments. Okay? Manufacturing, outsource service function, or play a role of regional assembly or service centers. Hanap po ng ibang mga clustering, no? And then there are also advanced clusters often seed or help grow clusters in other locations. No? They provide development, market development helps to other clusters na di pa kayo develop. Okay? So, there is a continuous challenge of upgrading the breadth and sophistication of countries through clustering because katong ingon sa inyo nga catering, for example, AirAsia catering service coming from the Philippines, what happens? There is a cross-fertilization of technology. The catering strategy or catering service technology from Malaysia and other countries will now be introduced to caterers that are members of this cluster in the Philippines. And in so doing, they will learn the technology of other countries in order to serve the clients of AirAsia, for example, or maybe Philippine Airlines. Then Macroasia, who is providing the aircraft maintenance of Lufthansa. So the German technology will now be cross-fertilized with the technology of what aircraft maintenance technology of the Philippines because they will specify that they should be using German parts and German technology. So, maintindihan, the process will now be known by Filipino engineers in a way improving their skills and capability. So that's the benefit of supply chain clustering, cross-fertilization, and also offsetting of weakness and minimizing risk across partners and making them overall as an industry very competitive, very competitive. So as we have said, preconditions of establishing viable cluster, there is it should meet a viable market. And then it should also cluster specific advantage also, like location, and then you have also an anchor firm, a base firm, no? And then you have closely related clusters and clusters, no? So meeting at least two of these conditions seems to be basic requirements for success in cluster development. Okay, so that is clustering of supply chains driven by three key drivers: proximity. You have what? Offsetting of risk and minimizing offsetting of weakness and minimizing risk. Okay, between each partner, and the third is connectivity. There is seamless connectivity between your partner industries or firms across the globe. Okay, and then the advantage is so huge in industry clustering, and it is happening already in manufactured industry, manufactured goods. But in agriculture, there is still so much to be done in agriculture. But we are doing already, starting to do it at the industry, at the firm level. But we have this, our version of ABCs, the agri-industrial business clusters. No? So with that note, next time I will discuss with you the continuation of 5.3, which is uh, global trends and models at the industry level, but this time another model of industry level, like global trends and, uh, and global trends and agribusiness models. Okay, so with that note, I will stop from here and also continue for the rest of the model in 5.3 next meeting. But next meeting, after you have read this, I would say that maybe next Friday I will go live already. That means synchronous ang klase na to. Friday next week, no? Friday next week. I'll go live next week to finish up with 5.3, and that's the end of our lecture. But we will have the reporting after that. Okay, that means third week of what? Third week of July, we'd be able to wind up the lecture and third week of July, and then have the reporting right in and there, and finals by the end of July, last week of July. Now, please take note the learning task in every lesson because it's embedded in the lecture already. Please take note of that, and I will collect that after the lectures are done. Okay, just take note of that. There is the learning task that is group output. There is also a learning task that is individual that is assigned individually to you. No? Please take note of that and manage yourselves together. Okay, thank you, and uh, have a good night, and I will see you next time or next meeting. God bless you all.